Before we begin, viewer discretion is strongly advised. The following is for educational and entertainment purposes only. According to Inner City Press, the federal courtroom was unprepared for what unfolded when the bailiff announced Denzel Washington's name. A Hollywood icon revered for his commanding presence, Denzel entered the witness stand with quiet resolve. He wasn't there for fame or to shield anyone. He was there to reveal a truth he had long kept hidden. What he disclosed left the room in shock. Sean "Diddy" Combs had allegedly schemed to host his notorious parties in outer space beyond the reach of earthly laws. But Denzel's testimony went further, exposing what he had witnessed firsthand: Diddy's treatment of his children in private and the secrets he had concealed to safeguard his career. What started as a high-profile celebrity trial spiraled into something far more unsettling, otherworldly, and unthinkable. Denzel's appearance wasn't anticipated. No rumors had circulated, no tabloids had hinted at his involvement, and the press had no prior knowledge. When the bailiff calmly declared, "The prosecution calls Denzel Washington," the courtroom didn't just fall silent, it tensed. Then he appeared. Denzel Washington, the embodiment of gravitas, known for portraying heroes and titans on screen. He stepped through the doors as if entering the climactic moment of a film, but this was no act. Dressed in a black suit with a blue tie, clutching a folded piece of paper, he moved deliberately to the stand. He paused, surveyed the room, and locked eyes with Diddy for a fleeting moment. Something unspoken and chilling passed between them before Diddy averted his gaze. Even the judge seemed momentarily thrown off balance. Celebrities had testified before, but Denzel's presence was different. He was an untouchable figure until this moment. After taking the oath, Denzel sat in silence for a beat, his composure unshaken. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady, devoid of theatrics, yet profoundly unsettling. "I'm not here by choice," he began. "I'm here because staying silent would haunt me." He explained that he had grappled for months with whether to testify, knowing the weight of what he had to say. "It's not easy, but it's necessary," he told the court. "I saw things, I heard things, and I stayed quiet thinking I could protect myself by staying out of it. That's how this industry operates, but I can't do that anymore." Looking directly at the jury, he continued, "This isn't about settling scores. It's about what happens when power runs unchecked. And if you think this trial has been shocking so far, wait until you hear what Diddy had in mind next." The courtroom leaned forward, bracing for revelations that would overshadow everything that had come before. Denzel set the stage by describing the early 2000s, a period when hip-hop and Hollywood began to intertwine in unprecedented ways. Diddy was no longer just a music mogul. He was mingling with top directors, studio heads, and elite agents. Wherever Denzel went, VIP lounges, charity galas, private retreats, Diddy was there, always at the center, exuding an air of control. He had a way of entering a room that made you feel the rules didn't apply to him, Denzel recalled. At first, it seemed innocuous. Diddy would jest about running the game or controlling the story, but over time, Denzel noticed a change. "I remember a private dinner," he said. Diddy leaned in and said, "You want to stay on top? You stop playing by Earth's rules." I thought it was just talk. I was wrong. Denzel began hearing whispers, not from tabloids, but from trusted colleagues and artists who confided in him late at night. "Diddy's throwing another party," they'd say, hesitating as if unsure whether to caution him or extend an invitation. But it wasn't just the parties, it was the mindset, the sense of untouchability, the secrecy. "He started talking about legacy in a strange way," Denzel recounted. He said, "My empire will outlast gravity. I thought it was arrogance. Now I know better." Denzel Washington's testimony grew increasingly unsettling as he described his growing unease. "I started questioning what kind of person says something like that and truly believes it," he told the court. He recounted several moments when he considered publicly distancing himself from Diddy, but fear held him back. Fear of retaliation, of being ostracized or labeled a traitor by the industry's elite. A few years ago, a troubling remark from someone in Diddy's inner circle stayed with him. "He's not just planning the next step for his brand, he's planning for another planet." Denzel initially dismissed it as hyperbole, but it wasn't. That moment marked the beginning of his quiet efforts to piece together what he now described as a disturbing fixation, not just on power, but on escape. And this escape, he emphasized, was not figurative but literal, meticulously planned. When Denzel uttered the word space, the courtroom stirred. Jurors exchanged glances, reporters' pens scratched furiously, and the judge leaned forward as if uncertain he'd heard correctly. Denzel remained unflinching. He described a 2020 retreat in Nevada, billed as a gathering for business and innovation, a secluded event for high-profile figures to disconnect. Held in a sleek, high-security, glass-walled lodge outside Las Vegas, it included about 20 attendees. No press, no phones, just elite celebrities and tech moguls sharing ideas over drinks. Diddy pulled Denzel aside and said, "I'm done with this world. Too many eyes, too many restrictions. I'm building something bigger, something off-world." Denzel initially thought it was a figure of speech, perhaps an eccentric pitch. But then Diddy opened his laptop and revealed a design. It wasn't just a spacecraft, it was a nightclub in orbit. The schematics showed LED floors, velvet-lined seating, and soundproof chambers. Diddy called it the Heaven Lounge, the first entertainment capsule in space. The courtroom gasped as Denzel recounted Diddy's claim that he was collaborating with private aerospace contacts and had already chosen his passengers. 10 men, carefully selected for their loyalty and secrecy. Diddy described it as a floating sanctuary, saying, "Up there, no lawsuits, no cameras, just freedom." Denzel's voice grew grave as he recalled Diddy using the term freakoff, like a trademark, boasting about hosting the first zero-gravity freakoff where no one could touch him. "That's when I knew," Denzel said, pausing. "This wasn't delusion. It was a calculated plan." He testified that a mutual contact later informed him Diddy had signed contracts with an obscure aerospace company for a non-civilian payload test slated for 2025. That payload wasn't cargo, it was people, with Diddy among them. What Denzel revealed next deepened the horror. He said Diddy referred to the space venture as a reset, a chance to start anew. When Denzel pressed him on what that meant, Diddy replied, "If I leave this planet, nothing from here can follow me." The courtroom fell into a heavy silence. This wasn't just about a music mogul, it was about a man who believed he could evade accountability by escaping Earth itself. Denzel's testimony then plunged into the logistics of what prosecutors later dubbed Project Exodus. He revealed that Diddy's plan was neither a fantasy nor a solo endeavor. It was backed by significant funding. "And I don't mean event planners," Denzel clarified. "I'm talking billionaires, tech tycoons, people whose names only surface when markets tank or satellites launch." Denzel Washington testified that one key figure, whose identity was withheld from public court records due to an ongoing investigation, was a known collaborator in private aerospace ventures. This individual, Denzel claimed, had been working with Diddy since 2021 to secure a remote plot of land near a launch site in South America, far from regulatory oversight. They labeled it a private celestial arts platform, but Denzel saw through the facade. It was a cover, he said. The truth was far more sinister. He revealed that a prototype of the spacecraft existed in simulation software shown to him by one of the tech investors. The design resembled a luxury jet but felt sterile. No windows, only artificial lights, plush seating, and a pulsing sound system. "It didn't look like a ship," Denzel said. "It looked like a trap." Beyond the spacecraft, Diddy had compiled a list of men he planned to take into orbit. "He told me, 'I only want people who can handle the silence of space and the freedom it brings,'" Denzel recounted. The list, he said, included a former NFL player, 2 disgraced music producers, a social media influencer, and an actor whose career had collapsed after a scandal. Each had attended Diddy's parties, signed NDAs, and had reasons to vanish. "Some didn't even know the full plan," Denzel explained. "They thought it was just a billionaire's getaway." But Diddy had no intention of returning. He called it the no-return run, Denzel said. The Freakoffs, as Diddy allegedly described them, would take place in zero gravity. No gravity, no accountability, Diddy had boasted. It'll be like sin floating among the stars. Denzel paused, his voice heavy. That's when I realized he wasn't just trying to escape justice. He wanted to recreate his chaos beyond it. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. This wasn't a script, it was real, and it had nearly come to fruition. The trial had already heard shocking allegations, from witness intimidation to hidden tunnels, but Denzel's account of Diddy's near launch into space sent ripples of disbelief through the room. It didn't collapse because he changed his mind, Denzel said. It collapsed because someone on the inside spoke out. He described a whistleblower, a former contractor for the private aerospace firm who grew suspicious of the project. The shuttle wasn't registered with any official agency, and its modifications, soundproof insulation, twilight-mimicking lights, and a high-powered audio system made no sense for a scientific mission. "You don't need that to study stars," the contractor reportedly said. According to Denzel, this whistleblower alerted a federal agency in late 2023, sparking a discreet investigation and heightened surveillance. By early 2024, authorities learned Diddy's private jet had landed near a covert launch site in Suriname, matching details Denzel had previously shared in an off-the-record FBI interview. He was set to launch on March 21st, Denzel testified, citing an internal document he had seen. Diddy called it the reawakening. The arrest was precise, not a spectacle. Federal agents, in coordination with local authorities, raided the compound during Diddy's private walkthrough of a mock capsule with two of his selected passengers. The capsule was already stocked with blackout curtains, exotic oils, oxygen tanks, and a crate of imported stimulants. When detained, Diddy reportedly said, "You can't cage the future." Prosecutors later revealed that Diddy had transferred ownership of 3 U.S. properties to shell companies weeks before the raid, signaling he wasn't planning a temporary escape. He was cutting ties entirely. He didn't want to run, Denzel said. He wanted to vanish, to rebuild his world where no one could touch him. The court viewed brief footage from a mock party rehearsal inside the capsule. Party lighting, velvet seats, costumed women and masked men lounging with champagne, replicating the atmosphere of Diddy's infamous Freakoffs, but in a space-themed chamber. Yet the most chilling revelation was still to come. Denzel's darkest memories of Diddy weren't about spacecraft or orbital parties, they were about what he witnessed behind closed doors in Diddy's home. The courtroom, already reeling, grew tense as Denzel spoke his next words. "I'm not here just because of what he did to grown men. I'm here because of what I saw him do to his children." Gasps echoed through the room. Diddy visibly reacted and the judge called for order, but nothing could brace the audience for what Denzel was about to describe. He began recounting an incident from 2016. Denzel Washington recounted a disturbing afternoon in 2016 at Diddy's Beverly Hills estate, where he had been invited for what was billed as a mentorship luncheon for young black actors, a gathering meant to inspire and guide. Instead, Denzel said, the atmosphere felt like a fortress steeped in dread. He described witnessing one of Diddy's teenage sons being forcibly escorted upstairs by a security staffer. The boy's eyes were swollen, his expression heavy, as if he had been crying for hours. Moments later, as Denzel passed a hallway, he heard a commotion, a deep, furious voice followed by the sound of shattering glass. "I froze," Denzel admitted. "I didn't know whether to step in." Then he heard Diddy's voice, bellowing, "You'll learn discipline in this house, or you'll vanish like the others." That single sentence, Denzel said, forever altered his view of the mogul. Later, when he quietly asked the boy if he was okay, the child whispered, "It's just how he shows love. It's normal." Denzel didn't believe it then, and the memory still haunts him. "I've seen military leaders discipline their children with more compassion," he said. "What I saw wasn't guidance, it was control." Over time, Denzel heard more troubling accounts. Insiders confided that Diddy's children were often treated like staff at his parties, tasked with serving drinks, guiding guests to private rooms, and remaining silent unless addressed. "I don't mean figuratively," Denzel emphasized. "They were instructed to act like servants." His voice wavered as he added, "Raise a child in fear long enough and they don't grow, they diminish." In 2018, Denzel said he privately confronted Diddy about his concerns. Diddy's response was chilling. "You raise lions by throwing them to wolves." The courtroom recoiled. One juror wiped away tears and the judge called for a brief recess, but Denzel refused to pause. "No, we finish this now," he insisted. While the trial had already revealed shocking details, this testimony shifted the focus from celebrity scandal to something far more human and harrowing: the treatment of children. The man once celebrated as a visionary mogul, Denzel alleged, ruled his home with unrelenting tyranny. After recounting these disturbing events, Denzel fell silent, his hands clasped, eyes lowered. The courtroom was hushed, hanging on his every breath. Then, in a near whisper, he said something unexpected from a figure of his stature. "I should have spoken out sooner." It wasn't a plea for sympathy. It was an admission of regret. He described the weight of guilt he had carried for over a decade, haunted by what he had seen at Diddy's parties, in his behavior, and in the fear that permeated those around him. "I had all the signs," he confessed. "I saw the fear in young artists' eyes, heard the murmurs in private conversations, saw his own children treated like possessions, and I looked the other way." He recounted hushed discussions with other celebrities who had witnessed similar behavior but were too afraid to speak out. They'd say, "If you talk, you're finished," or "Who's going to believe you over him?" Denzel nodded solemnly. "I let that fear control me, a man who's played heroes my whole career. I didn't act like one." He shared a pivotal moment from 2019 when he nearly came forward. A former employee of one of Diddy's production companies had contacted him anonymously through a mutual friend, pleading, "You're the only one he respects. If you speak, people might listen." Denzel Washington admitted he didn't act on the anonymous plea in 2019. "I told myself I needed more evidence, that I wasn't ready," he said, his eyes glistening as he faced the courtroom gallery. "But the truth is, I was protecting my family from potential harm." He spoke of the personal toll, how his sons had always looked up to him for standing firm in tough moments. "I failed them," he confessed. "I chose my career over protecting people." He described sleepless nights haunted by nightmares of Diddy's parties, where faceless figures wore masks and his own children appeared trapped and weeping. The guilt became unbearable, especially when he learned of Diddy's plan to flee to space. "If I stayed silent," Denzel said, "I would have let him escape Earth while his victims remained here, wounded, broken, and ignored." That, he declared, was something he could not allow. Denzel then shifted to the broader machinery that enabled Diddy's actions for decades. "He didn't build this empire alone," he said. "He was shielded by powerful people." He described a network of silence, a coalition of publicists, attorneys, executives, and influencers who knew the truth but kept the system running. There were cleanup crews not just for parties, but to erase them entirely, he testified. After major events at Diddy's estate, specialized teams arrived, not standard cleaners, but professionals equipped with blacklight devices, document shredders, and industrial-grade cleaners. Their job was to wipe away all traces, physical, digital, even emotional. Denzel recounted a 2015 private screening at Diddy's mansion where he inadvertently entered a back room and saw a man in a security uniform packing up hard drives. When Denzel asked what he was doing, the man hesitated before replying, "Standard sweep, sir. Client privacy protocol." Later, Denzel learned those drives contained footage of unsuspecting guests. In 2018, a studio executive emailed him, warning, "If the press gets hold of the O3 file, we all fall with him. Stay away." Denzel deleted the email but couldn't erase the memory. Then came a chilling piece of evidence. Denzel presented a printed redacted legal agreement, an NDA he received in 2011 after a charity event at Diddy's mansion. At first glance, it looked like a standard waiver, but the fine print was alarming. Any testimony, documentation, or expression of discomfort about private events constituted a breach of contract. It was an NDA disguised as a party RSVP, Denzel said. Hundreds signed these without reading, some because they felt they had no choice. Refuse and you were blacklisted, shamed, or silenced. Careers vanished overnight. You'd hear whispers, "She broke the rules." He talked to a reporter, then they were gone. Looking at the jury, he said, "This wasn't just one man's misdeeds. It was a system built to protect him at the expense of anyone who didn't comply." That system, Denzel added, nearly followed Diddy into space. The judge offered Denzel a moment to conclude. What followed was not just a closing statement, but a reckoning. Turning to Diddy for the first time, Denzel spoke directly to him. "You said you were creating something eternal, something untouchable. You thought escaping to space would make you invincible." He paused, letting the words linger. "But you can't outrun the truth by leaving Earth. You just abandon the people you've hurt." Denzel Washington turned back to the courtroom, his voice carrying the same steady resolve that defined his legendary screen presence, but now laced with raw emotion. "If Sean Combs had boarded that shuttle," he said, "he would have vanished into the cosmos. No charges, no trials, just more silence, more victims. And the world would have mistaken it for ambition." He continued, "Some will say this is too outlandish to believe, that a man like Diddy couldn't have done this. But they haven't seen what I've seen or heard what I've heard." He paused, then added, "And they didn't hear what he told me years ago, drunk at one of his parties. He looked at me and said, 'I'll never get caught because I'm not bound by this world.'" The courtroom fell still. It no longer sounded like bravado. It was the voice of a man who genuinely believed he could rise above all consequences. "I came here today," Denzel said, "not to be a hero or to seek praise, but to stop this madness. For the people he harmed, for the children who had no voice, for everyone who didn't survive his world." He folded the piece of paper he had carried into the courtroom, the same one he held when he first stepped in. "If he had made it to space," Denzel concluded, "this would have never ended." With that, he rose, stepped down from the witness stand, and walked out, deliberately, quietly, without looking back. The room remained silent, not out of reverence, but because some truths demand stillness rather than applause. For the first time in the trial, even Diddy, his hands covering his face, said nothing.